Production support for the Friday Zone is provided by the Margaret A. Cargill Foundation and by WTIU members. Thank you.
Taylor, what's up with your costume?
What costume?
The one you have on right now.
Oh, well, I was reading a book about the Three Musketeers and I liked it so much. Felt like I was in on the action. Join us as we flash into the past and learn about the Civil War, swords, and jousting right here in the Zone.
You're not alone. You're in the zone. So hang up the phone and get in the zone. Get in the zone. The Friday Zone. You're in the zone. The Friday Zone. Everyone is invited to come. Everyone is invited to come. Everyone is invited. Get in the zone. Everyone is the Friday Zone.
Hi everyone, welcome back into the Zone. Today we're going to experience a bit of the past.
Wait, what? How are we going to do that? Do you have a time machine? Oh, I always wanted one of those. You know, I wanted to go back and see Sir Francis Bacon.
Taylor, you actually don't have to have a time machine to experience the past. Seriously, you can discover so much about history by reading books, traveling to historic sites, or through reenactment. Learning through experiences is truly the best way to understand the past.
Oh, I thought you had a time machine.
Just wait, I'll show you. The Friday Zone field crew was placed in the middle of a battle as they experienced a Civil War journey in this zone investigation.
Lieutenant, prepare to charge.
The Friday Zone field crew went to Conner Prairie in Fishers, Indiana, to experience the most significant Civil War event on Indiana soil. The 1863 raid on Indiana involved over 2,400 Confederate troops led by General John Hunt Morgan. Morgan's raiders attacked when most able-bodied men were off at war. This allowed the Confederate cavalry to sweep through Indiana using 2 captured steamboats to cross the Ohio River. Morgan's men raided and plundered through Corden, Indiana, and other towns. They set fire to buildings, looted stores, and terrorized the townspeople. The governor of Indiana called for volunteers to join the fight against Morgan's troops. Militias were formed, which included older men, young boys, and women. They were totally unprepared to take up arms, but they tried their best against General Morgan and his men. This experience places you in the town of DuPont, Indiana, just as General Morgan and his men ransacked the town. We spoke to a DuPont store clerk, Lucille Burns Mayfield, to find out more.
And then all of a sudden, I heard what I thought was distant thunder. Well, I was soon to find that it was the thundering of rebel horse hooves as they came over our bridge and into our town, one by one, until there were over 2,000 of them. They came into the store and they ransacked the place. Grabbing whatever their rebel paws could reach, they took as much as they could carry and then some, and the rest they just smashed all to pieces all over the floor. Well, if you had been in the store then, you would have seen it reduced to absolute shambles.
You will find yourself caught up in the story as you experience what it must have been like for the people of DuPont. You can speak to residents and even enlist to protect the state. We spoke to John Elder, guest experience manager, for more information.
When you come out as a guest to this new area, you're going to be in the role of members of the 103rd Indiana, a group of soldiers that were put together to help defend the state in July of 1863. Union has set up their temporary headquarters at the Porter family home back behind me. So when you arrive over there, you'll meet a sergeant who's there to help train you and get you ready to go as members of the 103rd Indiana.
Are you here with the 103rd? Very good. Well, if you'd like, you can come through here. The Porter family has allowed us to use their house as headquarters and their summer kitchen as a field hospital.
We met Private Alex Spaulding.
Well, I got news of the raid this morning when I arrived. I was called as a reserve to come and train the new militia. The raid was rather horrific for those who were involved, from my understanding, are brought here to prevent it coming through again and using this as an escape route.
Private Spaulding showed us what life was like for a soldier here in 1863.
These tents here are garrison tents. They're A-frame tents. When you would be on the march, you would be issued a dog tent. 2 shelter halves. I have one, my friend has one. We button them together at night, make a tent. This here is called the company street. On it would be a row of tents here, a row of tents there. Street in the middle, you would have fires dotting down. In one of these tents, you would seat 6 people. You would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They would be laying widthwise, not lengthwise. So there's an advantage to being in front. You can get out fast. There's a disadvantage, you get stepped on.
He even demonstrated how to fire a rifle. We also saw a group of new recruits lining up for enlistment.
Are we ready to get Morgan? Yeah! Forward march!
General Morgan's raid may have wrecked parts of this town, but the raid did not damage the town's spirit. They banded together with others in surrounding towns to take on Morgan's raiders. It made our crew think, what would we do in a similar situation?
The thing I hope that you think about is, what would you do if you were there in 1863 when 2,500 soldiers invaded the state? So as you go through the different experiences and you find yourself caught up in the story, imagine what your reaction would be. Would you stay and try to defend your town? Would you flee for safety? Would you protect your home? That's the sort of thing that we hope is going through your mind as you wander your way through the site.
If you want to learn more about this raid on DuPont, Indiana, and find out how you can experience it for yourself, go to civilwar.connorprairie.org. Remember, Friday Zone viewers, sometimes the best way to experience the past is to imagine yourself in the same position as the events you learn about.
Even though the country was at war, kids still had to find a way to have fun back then. Well, I learned about a game called Graces, so let's try it. Some things that you'll need for this includes dowel rods, which we've cut into 2, so this was 1, now it's 2, and an embroidery hoop. And remember, you want to play this game with a friend, so I have this one right here.
How do we play?
All right, so each person needs a pair of dowel rods.
Okay.
All right, so have yours out. You're gonna end up crossing them like scissors, like so. Can you do that?
Yes.
So the movement for your sticks will actually be to uncross them like this.
Okay.
It's almost like a graceful movement, hence the name of the game.
Graces.
Exactly.
Okay.
So how about you practice that a couple times? Just do a graceful movement. All right, now again. One more time for everyone at home. Ready? Graceful. All right, so let's put the hoop on it.
Okay.
Let you practice.
Okie
So
dokie.
basically the point is to have these up at an angle just as you do.
Okay.
You're gonna put this hoop on here.
Okay.
And you actually kind of want it to be at the bottom of the triangle in here. So that way the farther it is out, it has the movement to
I'm
go
gonna
in. So try it.
Pass it.
Exactly.
Holy macaroni!
That was perfect. That was
That's
perfect.
pretty cool. Okay.
So it simply is just that. Now, the person on the opposite side is going to hold their sticks together like this so they can catch it. You want to try?
Yeah, so why do they play this game?
Well, this was actually from the 19th century, and it was for girls, Taylor. So guys were allowed to play, but it was mainly for girls to teach them nice little graceful movements
Well,
as
look
so.
at that, everybody. I'm
All right.
pretty grateful.
So let's play.
Okay.
Perfect. Now, you want to know something funny?
What?
I don't have to tell you yet. When the other person drops it, you actually have to play forfeit, which means
What's that mean?
the person that tossed it gets to tell the person that dropped it to do something.
Like what?
Oh, well, I don't know. I'll have to see.
Well,
Anything.
I'm gonna make you. Oh, okay.
That was not
forfeit.
staged.
Okay, Emily, I want you to do jumping jacks and sing "God Bless America."
God bless Taylor in the Friday Zone.
Oh, isn't she adorable?
So wait,
okay.
now do you have a game for me?
I have a game for you.
Let's
this
play.
one is called Hoop and Stick.
Oh, okay.
You ready for Hoop and Stick?
I am. I have my stick.
You have a stick? I have
And a
two.
hoop.
Okay, here we go. So this is a game that all the kids back in the olden days were playing, and you kids are gonna play it too because it's awesome.
All right, so what do you do?
You take your hoop, we're using hula hoops, and you take your stick, and your primary goal is to keep this hoop going around with your stick. Let's
Okay.
try it. You ready?
So now, did it
Go
have
like
to be a
this.
flat stick or a regular stick?
It can be whatever kind of stick you want.
It's like walking the dog.
I
Oh,
think
no.
flat works the best, but you keep it going, you keep it going.
Can you go backwards?
I don't know. Can you go backwards?
Ooh.
I'm not very good on. I'm struggling with my
Wonderful.
hoop and stick right now, Emily. Okay.
I think you're
Here we
talented.
go.
I'll give it one more try.
Hoop and stick, reverse.
Hoop and
Oh.
stick. All right. Well, it wasn't all fun and games in the 19th century. You still were required to get an education. See what school was like for students back then as we flash back with former host Katie Sullivan.
The clanging of the school bell greeted Marilyn Cobb's second graders as they climbed up the steep hill leading to the Honey Creek Schoolhouse. School marm Susan Clendenning was ready to guide the children as they journeyed back in time to explore what school was like for students during the 19th century.
Well, basically what I do is I take on the role of an old-fashioned school marm, and we try to conduct the class as authentically as possible. Although we take a lot of leeway with it, but we try to make it so that they get a real feel for history.
The Monroe County School District has maintained the Honey Creek Schoolhouse since the 1970s so that students can experience what education was like over 100 years ago.
About 1974, it has been used as a living history unit.
Marilyn feels that by spending a day at the Honey Creek Schoolhouse, her students come away with a deeper understanding of the time period.
The kids get a real feel for living history. They can read about it in books, but this way they truly experience it. They get to sit at the desk, they get to hear the noises, they get to smell the sounds. They just truly, truly enjoy it.
The Honey Creek School Marm keeps her 21st century charges busy.
We'll have a time that they hear a story read in the morning. They'll have time to do their copy work, which is copying into their notebook. They'll have time to read either aloud or silently in the McGuffey readers. We'll have a nature lesson that will be outside, and we'll have a penmanship lesson where they'll write with the stick pens and use the ink. Fourth grade, sometimes we will have a folk medicine lesson.
In her role as the school marm at the Honey Creek Schoolhouse, Susan works hard to make history come alive one field trip at a time.
I don't know that you can get a feel for history unless you experience it in some way, some little way. Even walking into the school, when you walk in the school, it smells differently. And if the wood stove is going, you smell the wood stove. If not, you smell an old, kind of a musty smell when you come in. You don't get that from a book. The whole atmosphere is it's just very different. And I hope they get a sense of history, a little sense of maybe what has gone on before them, and what's had to be done in order for them to be at the place where they are now.
By exposing students to the past, a visit to the Honey Creek Schoolhouse prepares them for the future.
Did you ever wonder what people wrote with before they were pens or pencils? Well, I did some research and found out that some people used quill pens, and I found it is really simple to make your own with the help of an adult. So, here's what you need: a 10-inch feather, scissors, a straight pen, and ink. So, Emily, let's get to work.
Okay.
First thing you want to do is you want to take your feather and you want to wash it. You can get your feather from like a hobby store or a craft store. Make sure you don't just find one off the street because those can be kind of gnarly and gross. So we're going to put some soap in here like so. Get it nice and soapy. Then take the feather, dip it in here.
The whole feather?
The whole feather. Let's get it all nice and clean because you don't know what kind of germs are in there. Okay. Then you take the feather and you would dry it off right here. But we're going to keep moving on. So your first step in actually making this pen, you're going to take your scissors. I got a little soap in my hands. Hang on.
I'm going to do this with you.
You're going to take your scissors. Yeah. Take your scissors and you're going to cut at an angle like this right here and get kind of a diagonal line down.
Okay.
So just go.
It's not very far from the end, but just a nice tip.
Right. You want it to get a nice point to write with. And these scissors are not the greatest.
Oh, there you go.
Are yours good?
Yeah.
Let me use yours. Yeah, the sharper the better for the scissors.
Is my point like okay? Can you see that?
Oh, that looks great.
Writable?
Yes, writable. There we go. Okay, here we go. Now the next thing is you want to take a pen, and kids at home, you might want to have an adult help you.
Thank
take
you.
A pen, and you want to get all this membrane, goopy stuff out from inside of the feather. So we're just going to kind of scrape around, get some of that out, because you want the ink to get in there so you can actually write with this thing.
Just the end just needs to be cleared, right? Not the whole thing.
You don't get it the whole thing.
Okay, I think I'm ready when you are.
Okay, now take your scissors, and we're going to cut a line right where that point is at the end of it. You're going to cut a little bit of line so that the...
Are we opening it up?
Yes, you can open it up so that the ink spreads when you write. Get a little bit of a line going right up to the top. And another thing too, for your handle, you know, this gets kind of messy, so if you want to trim these up too.
I think I will. Are you going to do some?
Yeah, I'm going to try to. I'm no
All right, I think that this is
beauty
doable.
salonist, but... Okay, that's all right. That's not the most beautiful looking thing, but
It
it'll
looks
work.
pretty comfortable for
So
you.
now the fun part that you guys can do is you dip these in ink and you can write letters to your friends or family.
Okay.
So let's try this out. You got some paper? Get all these feathers out of here. Let's load the pen with the ink. Dip it on in there. That's quite a
Ooh,
bit.
that looks very...
Let's see how this works. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Dear
I think I'm going to draw with
Friday
thinner lines. Yours looks thin.
Zone. Look at that. You can write us a beautiful letter here at the Friday Zone. Isn't that awesome?
Yes, it is.
What are you writing?
Well, I wrote in cursive because it's my favorite, but I just did our names. Do you like it?
Oh, that's great.
You taught me how to do it.
Yeah, well, some say that the pen is mightier than the sword. Who better to ask than a knight? Join us as we flash into the Middle Ages in this Friday's own field trip.
Welcome, all you lords and ladies. The Friday Zone field crew discovered that to be a part of the Golden Ages, you didn't have to be born in the 16th century. We visited the Fishers, Indiana Renaissance Fair to see that people of all ages could enjoy being a part of Queen Elizabeth I's kingdom. We spoke to the Queen, aka Susie Alexander, to ask why she enjoys participating in the fair.
I've always enjoyed history, even as a child, and we do not have kings and queens in America, but they do have one over there in the mother country, if you will. So I've always been interested in telling stories and acting and such, so this seemed a perfect fit.
Adam Fivish explained some of the wonderful activities and performances they have at the fair.
Oh, there is a ton of shows here today. Of course, the big thing is the joust. It's full contact joust with the Knights of Valor. We have Molotov the Gypsy, who does an act with breathing fire, and we've got horseback riding for those who are interested in that by the horses that are doing the joust. And of course, there's the cast. We have 160 cast members, and there's so much more.
There are over 250 costumed characters demonstrating everything from dances, music, and armed combat. And we quickly learned that these activities, they're a great learning experience. We started to wonder, how did they recreate these activities that were hundreds of years old? Toby Beck told us the answer.
So all the things that they have to do, they have to research first to find out how to do them. Many things in the Middle Ages were taught word of mouth by one master to a student, and a lot is taught that way here. But the way to advance learning something is to do research on yourself. There's no better way to teach than to experience. So one of the things they do is, if you want to learn to sew, let's make things. You want to learn to do calligraphy? Let's have you make scrolls. You want to learn to fight? Get out and fight.
And there were a lot of fight demonstrations to see. The clash of the weapons against the stainless steel armor gave us a real thrill. And through demonstrations, we saw what it must have been like for a knight to battle in the Middle Ages. The best representation of that was the joust. We spoke to James Acuff to find out more.
I'm here in conjunction with the Knights of Valor, putting on a full contact heavy armor joust. That involves near 2,000-pound war horses, 11-foot long solid wood lances, the armor you see, and a heart as big as all outdoors to be willing to do something like this.
Like James said, it takes a big heart to participate in this sport. We learned that lesson as we witnessed the biggest hit of the day. The night was all right, but remember, this is not to be tried at home. James and his team are trained professionals and thoroughly researched this sport before ever testing it. Research went into every part of this event to recreate the experience for the people who attended. From peasants to nobility and even the Queen's court, the clothes they wore, the food they ate, and the games they played were all found out by reading books about the time period. Then, with that knowledge, this group put it into practice.
It's a fun way to learn something. I mean, really. Who wouldn't want to do that? So
Why not?
You can visit the Fishers Renaissance Fair website to find out more about the event and other participating organizations. This Renaissance Fair and others like it around the country are great ways to experience this time period. But remember, viewers, if you can't get to an event like this, just reading a book about this time period and doing research on your own can be your way to flash into the past.
Well, viewers, I've been learning about the past myself through experience. I play the role of Porthos in The Three Musketeers. It has really taught me some interesting things about the time period, the style of dress, the way they speak, and of course, how you would handle a sword. Joining us here in the zone today is Adam Noble. He will show us how he uses research about the past in his job as a combat choreographer. Adam, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
So what have you brought with you today?
I brought a number of swords from across history.
Okay.
One of the first things that I start with when dealing with historical period and the fight is choosing the right weapon.
Okay.
Just like you wouldn't have New York thugs facing off with swords, you probably shouldn't have musketeers facing off with guns.
Right.
I have everything back from Gladius. This would be 4th century to about 3rd century AD. Cool. Yeah, BC to AD. Then we move into the medieval period, the broadsword. Yeah, it's funny because we went from a stabbing weapon that had some ability to hack to basically just a hacking weapon for bashing people. Yeah, well, this particular one.
Okay.
Then as the time periods progress, we get into about the 14 and 1500s, and we have the rapier.
Okay.
As you can see, much lighter, able to be dealt with one hand. Still considered a cutting weapon on both sides, but gradually as time wore on, people began to realize that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and the thrust became the matter of the day.
Cool.
Which is why by the 1800s, the final evolution of the sword was sometimes called the court sword or small sword. And as you can see, it's shorter than the rest, and it's almost just a needle, because all the slashing was gone, and now we were just puncturing people.
Yeah, just doing the old stabberoo.
But that was basically the evolution. We started with puncturing, and we ended with puncturing, and in between, we tried to hack people apart.
We just got a little fancy in between, too. Now, does the design, does that change the way? Because obviously this one's a lot bigger with the handles, and then these ones are a little bit, nicer looking. Does that change how you
Certainly,
fight?
as the blades got lighter and faster, and the ability to cut fast became apparent, the hand became a huge target. So you can see the cage hilts on these rapiers protecting the hand, whereas here that wasn't as much what they were aiming for because it took so long for that to side through the air, whereas this was quite quick.
So Adam, I have a question. With all of your research, how does this actually help you with your job of choreographing?
Well, the research, of course, informs the style of combat that we would be doing. In Three Musketeers, I consider it very much swashbuckling. It falls into the 1600s or 17th century. And so these are the sort of rapiers that they would have been using. And that style of fighting, right where we're at the transition from using the cutting edge to the point, is basically where we find ourselves in the play. So as I choreograph, I know that that's the style of fighting that they should be doing, not necessarily trying to hack at each other like they might with one of the older weapons.
Cool. Well, let's get into some choreography.
Sure, why not?
That's the fun stuff, right?
We can start with something simple.
I want to watch you guys.
Okay.
First, and then I've got
was
something
this a
for you.
man's kind of thing? Do women actually use these?
There is a history of women in fencing. It came about later, and usually they were disguised as men to learn. But you never know.
She doesn't know.
So why don't we just start with a basic parry riposte?
Okay.
Yes?
Okay.
So an attack could be a cut or a thrust. If Tyler is cutting at my right arm, yes, that would be the cut. This being stage combat, we have to make sure that it's safe, so he is targeting offline, and I parry his attack. A riposte is just an immediate attack back. I'll attack back to his right arm, and we have a parry followed by a riposte. He is also parrying my riposte. 1, 2. And we have the beginnings of the illusion of violence. Yeah? We have a bunch of stock phrases that we've used in the theater from time immemorial, back to the Elizabethans, rolling ones being one of them, where an attack comes in. This is called a parry of high 1, hence rolling ones, where I then attack him, and he does the same defense. We could do this ad nauseum on stage, And because these stock phrases were just there all the time, I'm dead. Yeah. Because these stock phrases were known by everyone, we could just, without very much rehearsal, go, let's do rolling ones, and then I'll stab you under the left arm, and we're done.
Right.
And with very little rehearsal, off they'd go to the races. Because I do stage combat, would you hand her the sword?
Here you
Because
go.
I do stage combat, there are principles that keep us safe. We have to have the illusion of violence, but not the actuality of it. So I'm just going to teach you really briefly how to slash at somebody's head for the stage.
Okay.
So, first, a good on guard, like you know how to use that thing.
I know how to use this.
And now you're going to pretend that you're going to cut my head off. The first thing you do is give me a big cue, like you're going to slice it right off my shoulders.
Like this?
Yep. Cue. Then, in a normal sequence of events, you would have your action, which is to cut me, and I would either die or avoid. Yeah?
Okay.
In stage combat, we have to keep it safe. So there is a cue, my reaction, and then your action, cutting where I used to be.
Okay.
As we do it fast enough, the audience can't tell the difference between the reaction and the action. And we have the ability to keep it safe.
Beautiful. You're learning from a pro, Emily.
I am.
Hey, who knew?
Now I know how to cue.
Exactly. Well, actually, kids, I didn't grow this beard for nothing. I'm in the Three Musketeers, which opens November 11th here at Indiana University and runs till November 19th. So you have to make sure to come check it out and check out Adam's awesome choreography.
Yes. Well, is there anything else that you could show us that maybe you haven't delved out to you yet? I mean, this is kind of heavy. Is there something that we can learn maybe from the other ones?
From the other weapons?
Yeah.
But of course.
I mean, this one to me feels very heavy, but it's obviously not the most heavy, right?
No, here, have this one.
I'll trade
This
you.
one people are very used to. It's more like a baseball bat, so people tend to have a feeling of greater comfort with this, but the principles behind it are entirely the same. If you were trying to cut me across the center with this weapon,
Would I have to?
cue,
First. And then?
cue, reaction, action.
Okay.
Same safety applies.
Okay.
But the nice part is, if I may use you,
Trade you.
is once we have this safety, cue, his reaction, let's go back.
You wanna
and
go
away.
back?
Boom. I can swing through for all I'm worth, so we can get an illusion of violence even while it's safe.
Well, that was wonderful. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for this week. We want to thank Adam Noble for his wonderful lesson here in the Zone today.
Remember, if you're inspired to learn more about history, you can always do research and discover it yourself. Don't forget to write to us about your experiences and discoveries at www.fridayzone.org. Download this or other episodes of the Friday Zone for free on iTunes.
Remember to live, learn, and play the Friday Zone way. We will see you right here again next week. Bye-bye.
All right, let's keep fighting.
Yeah, I'll let you guys.
Production support for the Friday Zone is provided by the Margaret A. Cargill Foundation and by WTIU members. Thank you.